Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Next to the Floor. My name is Harrison. I'm your host with the most. We're back after a little hiatus, mini break for a week. I'm joined, oh, there he is, by the ever incredible Gary Knox-Derry. Hi, Gary. How are you today?
Hello, hello, hello. I am good. I am good. We had some good weather in Boston, so
Finally.
we go outside more, which is great in nice weather.
Yes. Well, I mean, it was nice for a day.
Yeah, and then today was kind of like, I stayed in today though. Stayed in today.
Um, Did I see you yesterday? I did see you yesterday. You came by the
Yeah,
studio, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. I
yeah.
was like, I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. Um, Now that I really only see you one day a week. So oh man, we have so much to catch up on, so much to talk about. Before we begin, I wanted to let everybody know, or apologize to everyone for not having an episode last week. Little did people know that life gets crazy when you're a professional ballroom dancer. And between, changes in staffing at the studios and changing in events and things along those lines, things got kind of busy. And I had a certification exam last week, and I was talking to Gary, and I was like, it probably would be in our best interest just to not do an episode this week, and so I could focus on that. And here we are, a week later. I've passed. I've now got my bronze master's certification, and yeah,
There you go.
we're back.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. But enough about me. Gary, hello. What's new? What's cracking in your world?
Not much, not much. Dancing a lot more, having a lot more dance sessions, which is good. Trying to sharpen the skills. Was preparing for competition. Well, I guess I will still am preparing for competition. It's just now it's at a later date.
Yeah. Yep. Are you Who are you dancing with?
I am dancing with Holly from Burlington.
Nice, Sue. That's exciting. Are you guys dancing rhythm or
We're
smooth?
dancing smooth.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
We got a whole cohort of smooth dancers. Aw, thanks, Mom. I'm proud of me too. Sorry, my mom just commented. What a cutie. Um, that's exciting. Yeah, we've got a whole cohort of smooth dancers up here in Boston. That's really exciting. What made y'all decide smooth?
Um well, I mean, we're gonna do smooth and rhythm,
Mm,
but we decided to start with smooth. We can't learn all the routines all at once now, can we? I mean, we can,
you
but
could,
you
but that's a
could, but
lot.
that's a
That
that's
is
a lot.
a lot. Like more than necessary.
Way more than necessary.
I'm. Oh, are you um happy or sad about the news that our most recent or most current competition is canceled?
Mixed feelings
Okay.
about it.
Yep.
Because I'm I prepared studios
Yeah. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
it and myself, but then again, still think we shouldn't be gathering. like um, yeah. I mean,
Yep.
granted, like half the people in our students, like, and probably other students as well, have gotten vaccinated because
Right.
we serve an older, community.
Yeah.
But none of the I'm not sure if any of the instructors and any of the other studios are vaccinated.
I think it's starting to happen more often, but I agree with you 100%. I kind of approached the news both disappointed, but also at the same time, I'm like, you know, grass idea, one less thing. I was, disappointed for sure because, I think we were all hoping that by this point, or by at least that point, I should say, in June, that people or more people would be vaccinated and things would be a little bit like cleaner or more in the clear than they are currently. But, also I'm a little relieved because it's not that, I want to delay the inevitability of the ballroom world and dance world and the world in general getting back to kind of like the chaos that it was before.
Yeah.
But in a small sense, I'm kind of glad that we're delaying that inevitability by another couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gives more time to work with students on things. I know for like Kat and I just had coaching this afternoon, and we have all of our rhythm routines and everything, and they're feeling pretty good. But it's like nice to know that we now have an extra couple of months to make everything like feel quality.
Yeah, because we were trying to crunch some routines.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
You had 8 weeks to get all of that together. God.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, yep.
Yeah. Woof. Woof. No.
I'm glad we have some time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think it's kind of ironic, although, is it ironic? I don't know if it's irony, that the first competition that we are slated to go to is in
Florida.
Yeah.
Remember they still had theirs last year, didn't they?
So, yes, they did, but we're not gonna talk about it. We won't talk about it. Uh-oh. Gary, I think you're back. Okay, you froze for a quick second. Oh. We're having connection issues. I hope it's not me. Well, good news. Oh, you're back. Okay, everything's fine. Okay, everything's fine. Nobody panic. That's been the theme and mantra for the last couple of days is everything's fine. Nobody panic. Everything's fine. Nobody panic. But speaking of everything's fine, nobody panic, and yet also everything's not fine, everybody panic. Let's talk, some current events and things that have been going down in the real world outside of the dance studio. Starting with the topic that's on everybody's tongues, the fact that DMX passed away.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And he was what? I think it was 50, 59? 50 something?
Yeah, April 9th.
50. He was 50 years old, period.
Past that 50.
Yeah, man. Oh, DMX. Party up in here.
How did he die?
I think
heart attack.
Yeah.
He died from a heart attack.
Y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here.
It's iconic DMX song.
X Gon Give It To Ya, the Rough Riders anthem. And it's so weird. Okay, so, I don't know if people who have met me in my later years, now that I'm in my 30s, people don't know a lot of this about me, but when I was younger, the likes of DMX, Coolio, Bone Thugs and Harmony, NWA, that was who I listened to. Those were my early influences growing up.
I think it was all of our early influences.
Yeah, for real. And we turned out fine. Or whatever. We turned out pretty okay.
I mean, I don't know. Still get angry sometimes. Like I don't know. Like
But is it because of DMX?
I don't know. Did I go shoot anybody though?
We're not going to go there.
I know, right?
But let's go there for a quick. Well, because we kind of talked about it on the last episode. You know, it's so easy to scapegoat. It's so easy to make that the scapegoat. And you know, here we are. I have an entire generation of kids who grew up with, with DMX, with Marshall Mathers, Slim Shady, Eminem, / and turned out to be. I'm not going to say fine.
I mean,
I'm not going to say fine and or well adjusted. However, you know, I don't see mass murderings, mass shootings happening by, you know, people of color as often or as frequently. But that's a whole nother topic. Let's see, who else passed away? Oh,
if you want to learn more about that, go and watch our last episode.
Oh, 100%. Swing back to episode number 17. It's still available on the Facebook and on YouTube, so check those out. So unpopular opinion, less important news, but it is less important news because, you know, screw the entire royal family. But Prince Philip died.
Hey, Betty White's still alive.
Betty White is still kicking, so we're doing good. We're doing good. So I know we were talking about this the other day. So, you know, loss of life, horrible thing. But I've read a couple of things. First and foremost, as tragic as it is that he passed away, you know, it's an incredibly sad thing. I am also slightly disappointed that he was almost 100 years old. Like, almost. He died 2 months before he turned 100. So that's like, yeah, so it feels bad, man, on that angle. You know, you're almost at that century mark. You're about to have your centennial.
10.
Yeah, and then just to kick the bucket like that, that's... But I will say he's been looking kind of crapola, like a zombie. We might have a patient zero on our hands. But, you know, I read this article. It wasn't an article, or maybe it was just like a post on Twitter or something, but Prince Philip has been a royal for longer than England owned India, or like colonized India, when India was like a British territory.
Yeah,
Prince Philip, like he was a royal for before that happened. So he's like one of the original colonizers of India. Yeah. Because I think they gained their independence in the 90s. I wrote this whole, it's so weird. Why do I know this information? I think it was Hong Kong. Wrote this whole paper when I was in like 6th grade on Hong Kong and the British occupation thereof. And, you know, Hong Kong didn't gain its independence from the English crown until like 1990. I want to say 99 or 89. Oh,
I'll look it up now.
Yeah, man. But India gained its independence in 1947.
1947. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of history for you.
Yeah, the movement spanned from 1857 to 1947.
Anyway, he was one of the original ones, and as you know, terrible as it is, he and the whole clan can kick rocks, especially with how they've been treating Meghan.
You know what they tried to say about that? They tried to say, Fox News tried to say that, like, Meghan is one of the reasons why Prince Philip kicked the bucket
Of
because he was upset over the current state of affairs between the family.
well,
Like,
here's that emoji for you.
they're literally blaming Meghan for his death. Like,
Yeah, well,
look, have you looked at? Oh my, have you heard that? It's crazy.
I feel
It's
like
crazy.
the whoever wrote that headline, like their arms and their back must be exhausted from just like the sheer amount of reaching and stretching and back bending they had to do to think about that, and then the mental gymnastics that they had to like follow up on it in order to like
nonsense.
but that's why, and this is not the first that any of our viewers, I'm sure, have heard this, but that's why Fox News is not to be trusted. They, that they lost or the only reason why they won, there was a court case that they were a part of, where they argued that they weren't liable for something, I forget, because their own attorneys, Fox News' attorneys, argued that no right-minded person would take their news as fact. That's not verbatim, but that's effectively what they said. So I'm just gonna throw that information up there and let that kind of like settle and marinate.
But then they claim to be
What's their tagline? It's like America's most reliable news network.
yeah. Something like that. Hold on.
Like where and or how? Explain to me where and or how. Most watched. Kate.
Most trusted, standing up for what's right.
Ugh.
Gag.
So basically, let's boil that down to whatever is going to make white America
Most trusted.
Yeah, most trusted by like white America. And we'll just leave it at that.
I know, a news source for white America. That's crazy.
Listen, they've got to get their news from somewhere.
I just want BET back, like the real BET.
The real BET.
The old BET.
Oh man. What was it? What was the one show? Oh, something in Park. You know what I'm talking about? 105 in Park, 107, 105 in Park.
Oh.
What was it? Oh, it's 106 in Park. Josh is yelling at me from the other room. 106 in Park.
Oh, 106 in Park.
What a show. What a show. What a time to be alive, the 90s. In the early 2000s.
Take me back. Take me back.
But
4 seasons that lasted. 106 in Park. Oh yeah, I remember this show.
But but really, do we want to go back? I was thinking about it, then as much as we miss and cherish the 90s and like all times prior to where we are today, and wish we could go back to simpler times, echoing thoughts and words from every generation before us back in my day. Let's just talk about how problematic
literally
everything. Every single thing. Everything. I'm thinking about,
Isn't ignorance bliss?
Oh man, it really is. But that's the problem. I think by and large that's the problem. That ignorance, though blissful, is just that. Ignorance. So I'll leave y'all with that bit of information today, that ignorance, though blissful, is still ignorance. Speaking of ignorant, we're going to make a hard pivot to everybody's favorite QAnon supporter, Mr. Matt Gaetz. Yeah, Mr. Matt Gaetz. And speaking of being problematic, so our man, Mr. Matt Gaetz, has got himself embroiled in all sorts of shenanigans. And, from what is, sex trafficking and sexual affairs with underage. I was about to say underage women, but then I wanted to correct myself, because underage women are girls, they're children. So there's that bit of information for you. And shocking to exactly no one, and yet seemingly everybody, the people who are defending him are the exact same people who, I think it was just this past year over the summer, when that little boy was shot in his front yard or whatever, and they were all saying like, save our children, save our kids, protect our kids, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yes. All lives matter, blah, blah, blah.
Double standard thing.
Guess who his most staunch defenders are?
Matt Gaetz.
Those same exact people. What do you know? It's almost like it was just a phrase used to silence other things that were going on in that moment.
Yeah. Like always.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
To draw
everywhere.
To draw comparison, let's look at how silent the All Lives Matter crowd has been in regards to the Stop Asian Hate movement. Why not? And this isn't in a viewpoint of mine, just to clarify, but why not stop all hate?
Yeah. Why not stop all hate?
Don't all lives matter?
I guess not in this situation.
Don't they?
No.
Don't they? Don't all lives matter? Why can't we stop all the hate?
Why can't we stop all the hate?
It's almost like that phrase, all lives matter, wasn't about the fact that all lives matter so much as it was as a distraction or counter view for the fact that we were saying that, Black lives should matter. But I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know. Ignorance, bliss.
I still can't believe that the whole all lives matter party formed from Black lives. I still can't believe it.
But
I can.
I can.
I can. But it's so stupid.
I think that's
so stupid.
Isn't that the most interesting thing, that I'm constantly shocked and surprised, yet at the same time neither shocked nor surprised. It's the weirdest experience ever to go about life being I'm completely shocked that this whole entire situation happened, yet at the same time I'm
not surprised.
Well, duh, I could have seen this happening from 3 miles away, from about 60 years away.
You know what I could see coming from 1,000 miles away? More police brutality.
shocking.
Shocking.
Actually
And
shocking.
none other than my home state, Virginia. And none other to a army lieutenant.
Yep. Okay, so if to cue viewers in, if you haven't seen the video, their video surfaced body cam footage. I think like it happened probably a couple months ago or something along those lines. But basically, like,
But it's being like it's the fact that it's being brought up now,
yep,
but like it happened so long ago and nothing has been done.
yep.
And they still work. The cops still. It happened
Oh.
like what 3 months ago.
Of course.
Wait, yeah, and the cops are still employed.
Of course. Well, the full story for everyone. There was a black male Army vet, lieutenant in the Army, actually active duty. He's being pulled over by the police. They flash their lights or whatever. He's on a dark road, no lights or anything along those lines there, and it's actually like written into Virginia's laws that you are like, if you're in an unsafe location or a place that you deem unsafe, that you're allowed to like pull over into a well-lit area.
And I've used that too. Like I've done it myself as well. But I happen to have I happen to have a white girl in my car.
Yep. So
I don't know if that's good or bad, but
right. So he pulls into a gas station that's like 2 minutes after they start flashing their lights at him or whatever. They pull up, and then within seconds of again, shocking literally nobody, yet surprising everyone about how could this have happened. The police officers have already drawn their weapons and are aiming it at this guy, telling him conflicting things to put his hands outside of the window. Like you watch the video, you can literally hear one of the officers is yelling, "Put your hands outside the window." And then the other officer is telling him to open the door. Both of them holding their guns directed at this man.
yeah.
So you've got that going on. And then one of the officers walks up to the thing, tells him to open the door. Meanwhile, the other guy is telling him to keep his hands visible, like keep your hands outside the window, telling him. And he pepper sprays him in the face 3 times. Like spray, pause. There was a pregnant pause. Pregnant pause. Spray again. Another pregnant pause. Open the door. Spray again. Mind you, my man is now blinded. Blinded. With his hands out the window, being told, open the door. Like, stop resisting, open the door.
Yeah. Stop resisting. Why aren't you opening the door?
Make it make sense. Make it make some semblance of sense. Any and all.
I'm just glad that his dog wasn't loose in the back of their car.
Ugh.
Like, because he was in like a kennel, and like pretty sure they would have shot that dude's dog.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Without question. Without question. So that was the most recent thing that come out. Mind you, this is in the middle of a broadcasted on national TV networks during the Derek Chauvin, George Floyd murder trial. And yet there are still, again, shocking no one, surprising everybody, there are still people who are defending this guy by saying, he has a right to, the narrative has switched to, he deserves due process. Which
when like we all saw the murder,
right, well, I mean, and it's, I agree. We all do deserve due process. Period. That's the statement. That's
Why does it take this? Why should it take this long?
A, why does it take this long? But then B, there are about, I can name off the top of my head about 10 people who didn't get due process at all. Because
They got shot,
yup,
or killed in other ways.
yup,
Knee to the neck.
yup. So, I think it's so interesting that, like, on one hand, we are, we have this group of people, cough, white people, who are saying, well, he wasn't that good of a person. He shouldn't have been, he shouldn't have been jogging in that neighborhood. He shouldn't have been at the playground with a toy gun. He shouldn't have been, he should have not been walking around with his hoodie up. And it wouldn't have been a problem. And on the other hand,
he shouldn't have been playing with his toy gun.
right? She shouldn't have been, she shouldn't have been sleeping in that room. He shouldn't have he should have, told the officer that when he was reaching for the wallet in his pocket, even though he just told the officer that the gun was in he had a concealed gun in his dash and that he had a license for it, that he was reaching for his wallet. Just to name a few. But then on the other hand, for them to say, well, everybody deserves due process. It's like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure that, like, are you sure that those are the arguments you want to make back to back? Because the 1 + 1 isn't equaling 2 in that situation.
All I want is when I get arrested for,
Why would you say when? Do you have plans? do you have plans?
Even if I did, you can admit it on my
Tune in next week.
and you know what? If I did have plans for illegal activity, I wouldn't lie to it.
Ooh.
Oh.
Whoops.
All I'm asking, if I ever do get arrested, I'm just gonna ask politely, can you loosen my cuffs, please? I'm hungry. Can we get a burger? And hopefully they might take me to a burger place, or maybe give me a bottle of water, even if I maybe ask nicely. But I probably won't get asked nicely. I'll probably just get shot.
Mm. It's just when the truth is punching you in the face. Oh god, it just boggles my mind that, like, we as a society are walking face first, just like face first into the idea, into the concept, into the issue. And yet we're still like, what is happening? I don't understand. How could this be a problem? Why is this happening all of a sudden? What do we do about this?
It's just what Will Smith said. Something a bunch of people said this is like, no, I think it was like Will Smith said this, I think, but he's like, well, it's always been happening. It's just now people are
filming it. Yup. Mm-hmm. We're gonna take a quick break because guess what? We are hashtag not sponsored. Oh, shocking. Surprise! We are hashtag not sponsored today by the beautiful people over at Melanin Apparel. Here's their website. Look at me pulling it up ahead of time. I'm so impressed with myself. Melanin Apparel, one of the coolest companies out there. They are black-owned apparel company. And they just have, the most woke ass shit. I want to buy this hoodie so much. Just so much. I love it. But they've got such great things. I also want to get this hoodie. It's phenomenal. But check them out at melaninapparel.com. If you are, feeling super fancy and want to leave a like and or comment, we'll give you something to leave a comment about in the comment section below. But you have to leave a like and or comment, and you also have to well, no, you just have to do those two things: leave a like and or comment. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, because otherwise, you're not going to be keeping up with the keep up, which is really sad for you. I feel bad. But with that, if you also want to help support Next to the Floor and everything that we do around these parts, which is basically just Gary and I talking crap about people, hey, somebody's got to do it.
It's true.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it. That's all I'm saying. But you can become a patron on our Patreon. So you just go to www.patreon.com/next to the floor. Again, that's www.patreon.com/next to the floor. All the information is in the description box below this video. If you're on YouTube, it's below the video. If you're on Facebook, it's somewhere if you're on Twitch. So check it out. Yeah, I think those are all the announcements. Oh, we should have a regular episode next week because we missed last week. So next week would be our regular episode. So check out episode number 19 next Sunday. So yeah, and we'll talk about more things. And I haven't asked him yet, but Steven might be back. So it's going to be shenanigans, probably. I should probably ask him, but but it's going to be nonsense. But okay, that's all. That's everything. So circling back, it's interesting having talking about this topic that we're on right now. Why everything is so shocking and yet surprising. And I am a firm believer that, who was I talking to about this? That the main issue that we have as a people is that the vast majority of, I'm just going to say Americans and people in general, lack a well-defined ability to do what we call critical thinking. Hi, Coffee. It's good to see you. Yeah, people lack critical thinking skills 100%, just straight across the board. There's no critical thinking. People aren't able to objectively look at a situation and say, oh, yeah, there is a problem here. And it's because people don't take the time to actually sit down and think about issues and problems that are going on. But then not at all. On a similar note, I think people fail to recognize how nuanced and interconnected things are. For example, okay, and so this will probably take up the rest of the conversation or the rest of the episode. So hold on to your hats, people, because this was a very I know. Because this is a very heated conversation that I had, but got into a conversation, argument, I don't know, we'll define it later. Heated discussion with I will say a relative of mine about the voting laws that were just passed in Georgia, which have, rightly so, been labeled as, a very clear racist attempt at disenfranchising Black voters in Georgia. That's like point blank what it is, period. There's no questions about it. That's what it is. So the whole conversation starts by, a Facebook post that says, so I guess it's racist now to ask people to have an ID. Blah, 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 blah. And so this is where my issue is. and I'll make this point here, that it's not racist to ask people for an ID. In fact, the vast majority of people in the United States above a certain age have an identification. However, the nuanced look at the laws that were just passed in Georgia would grant you the following bits of information. One, the laws were passed after a highly, highly, highly contentious vote and election wherein Republican lawmakers have basically like pushed this huge lie that like illegal voting and voter fraud was widespread and rampant, even though it has been proven, not only this year for this election, but time in and time out, that voter fraud is barely existent in the United States. And even when it does exist, it is so minimal that it barely causes enough of even a ripple to affect the outcomes of an election. It's usually like 1 or 2 cases per election cycle.
Yeah.
And the irony of the situation is that those 1 or 2 cases tend to be Republican voters. So there's point number 1. So these laws were passed as a response to this election wherein former President Donald Trump lost the election handedly, because Black voters in Georgia and in Michigan and in Arizona, basically, and Pennsylvania, basically like carried the vote. They were organized and got word out there, and their votes counted and swung those states in the direction of Joe Biden. That is why those laws were passed, period. Point blank, no other thing. The other nuanced reasons why it is racist to ask people for an ID to vote is because typically in these southern states where they have made it more difficult now to vote or require an ID, access to proper identification and voting booth, like the voting booth, has been diminished to an extent where it has become incredibly difficult now for Black and people of color voters, Black and or voters of color, I should say. It makes it incredibly difficult for them to actually exercise their civic duty, to an extent that fellow white voters do not have to experience. So when you have a situation wherein you're requiring people to have an ID to vote, that's totally fine. I don't think there's anybody against that idea. However, if you're going to make that a requirement, you have to make the process by which people are getting IDs to vote, the correct IDs, proper IDs to vote, you have to make that as accessible as humanly possible. You also have to make the process of voting, or the ability to vote once people have set IDs, as easy as possible. You can't continue putting hurdles and roadblocks in people's way, hoping to disenfranchise or destabilize that vote, because it then 9 times out of 10 disproportionately affects Black and Latino voters, period. Disproportionately affects them just across the board. So yes, when you have, I think that's the point that people don't understand, is that it disproportionately affects. That means it makes it infinitely more difficult for people of color to do something. Like if this is the scale of ease, white people are up here on the scale of ease of access to voting. Blacks, Latinos, and people of color are down here. If you move the hurdles so that, if this is the difficulty, even if everybody is negatively affected, it is now infinitely more difficult still for these people.
Yep. Yep. It's it's kind of like it's kind of like when Robin Hood back when GameStop stock was cheap,
Oh,
and then they're like, "Oh wait, these normal people, they can't do
yeah,
stocks."
yeah, they can't do
No,
that. Speaking
that
of, and completely unrelated to everything that we're talking about, we're taking Doggy Coin to the moon today. So,
yeah, dude.
yep,
I mean, it's not. I'm not here to give you financial advice, but
we're going to the moon,
to the
y'all.
moon.
We're going to the moon, y'all. That's one of those moments where if you know, you know. But I woke up this morning and was like, oh, hello. Yep. But
Vroom.
yep. Not to get distracted. But and then interestingly enough, this conversation, circling back to the conversation that I was having. So these are the points that were being made. The conversation then turned to, well, basically what it sounds like is that Black people are complaining and like are incapable of, like, it sounds like all people are saying is that like Black people want special treatment for access to voting. And the answer is no, we don't want special treatment.
We just want
We
the
just,
same.
we want the bar for, like, okay, so again, we'll talk about this on a 10-point scale. If the minimum level of ease to vote is a 5, white people are at a 7, Black people and people of color are at like a 4 in most southern states, from a ease of access to voting locations to access to identification, period. If you also notice that in majority of communities of color, the time required to vote is usually 3 or 4 hours longer than it is in non or in white communities.
Have you seen some of those lines?
Yes, so
For like
like
it's ridiculous.
so you've got all of these like extraneous factors in there. So then if you pass laws that make it more difficult, so even if you lower or make it more difficult for people to vote by, let's say, 2 points on that scale, bring white people down to a 5, you're bringing Black people, people of color, down to a 2. White people are still at that minimum level, whereas Black people and people of color still have to go over 3 extra points in order to actually hit that minimum level. So all you've done is just made it more difficult. Yeah, you made it slightly more inconvenient for white communities, slightly more inconvenient, but you've made it infinitely more difficult now for Blacks and people of color. And all that does is disenfranchise Black people and people of color, because who do Black people and people of color tend to vote for? Democrats and liberal candidates. So, it's all a game, and it has nothing to do with like people asking for like special treatment. I think people have a lack of understanding of equality versus equity versus justice. And truly what we want is, yeah, equal rights would be nice, but equal doesn't necessarily mean that, like, equality doesn't mean that the system is fixed or like the root issue has been solved. Equal just means that we've created other systems that are going to allow more access to opportunity, right? You look at things like affirmative action, right? That is a great equal rights program, but it doesn't address the root issue of access to education for Black people and people of color, right?
No,
Like, equity would be great.
equity would be great.
right? Equity would be great because then that at least, I mean, and if we're talking like true definition, affirmative action would be much more of like an equity program, whereas equality would be like me giving both people the same thing. You both get a ladder, but the ladder happens to be the same height. White people just happen to be a little bit taller so they can reach the fruit that's higher. Right? Equity would be giving proportionate amount of things, whereas justice is actually addressing the fact that, you know, the tree might be leaning more towards the side of white people, and therefore they have more opportunity to get all the fruit off the tree. So if we fix the tree, then there's equal access to things along those lines. So what that means, just so everybody knows at home, if you haven't been paying attention, is that we just have to fix the voting system and fix all of the systems that are in place to make access to voter identification and voting equal across the board from its root, as opposed to just creating like miniature systems that give the idea of equality but really don't address any of the root problems. Ugh, and rant. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. This has been a discussion on equity, equality, and justice, courtesy of Next to the Floor. Ding.
TED Talk logo popped up.
Yeah. Oh, I should get an animated one for our next. Oh, like, you know, the more you know GIF.
I think we'll get sued if you do that.
Yeah, I'll see if I'll get the more you know, and just have that play across our screen at one point. I'll just drop it in. That would be fun. So yeah, that's all I had to say on that. Oh, we're back. Everything's fine. Nobody panic. So that's all I had to say on that. Needless to say, you know, that relationship is a little bit strained at the moment, but it's by and large because, and I will say this again, you know, it's hard to compare. Well, I didn't actually say this, but the person who I'm speaking about lives in upstate New York.
Oh, okay. Upstate.
Yes. So, well, and even so, you know, everybody assumes New York State is a very blue state. And that's because it goes blue literally all the time, except for that one time. I think it was when Nixon ran. But what people don't realize is the only reason why New York State is blue is because of New York City, Binghamton, Albany, Buffalo, and Rochester. Without those 5 cities, New York is one of like the most deep red states in the Northeast.
Yeah. Like
deep red. Like I grew up in effectively like the heart of Trump country. Like the smack dab in the middle.
It's still Texas.
Well, I said the Northeast. Yeah. The Northeast. Yeah, basically. So, you know, I had to remind said person, whose name I won't speak out. Mom, if you're listening, you know who I'm talking about. But I had to remind this person that, you know, you can't compare, and this is the other problem with people who don't understand nuance or don't have a concept of nuance, is you can't compare your current situation living in upstate New York, where laws that are passed are wildly liberal and blue across the board. You can't compare that experience to that of a deep red southern state. You cannot. Because, my friends, there is a DMV or an RMV pretty much in every single town. And if there isn't, it's within 5-10 miles from your location. There is decent public transportation available in upstate New York. It's not the greatest, but it's decent. I could take the Oneonta Public Transit. I could take it from Oneonta out to Cooperstown, which is like 20 miles away. Right? We don't have a requirement for identification when you're voting. And if we did have one, all you have to do is provide a. You can provide like a piece of unopened mail with your address on it. Like that is all that's required. Minimum. So no, you can't compare your experience to those of people in Georgia or in the Deep South, because that experience is completely different, and you can't equate the two. So stop trying to make false equivalencies, you stupid, 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 stupid person. Stupid.
Say it one more time for the people in the back.
You're stupid. I said what I said. I'm not apologizing for it. I said what I said. I hope everybody at home has learned something today. That I have a stupid family member. Shocking. I know. Surprising. Not really. But that is today's episode of Next to the Floor. Huge shout outs to all of our Patreon supporters. Y'all have been phenomenal as far as supporting our little adventure here. Everybody at home watching, you're the best. We love you. Lots of hugs, love, and kisses and prayers to the family of DMX. I know, like, he probably wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but definitely left his mark on the rap industry and in the Black community. So, rest in power. Stop Asian hate, Black Lives Matter, etc., etc. All Lives Matter is a con. Don't lie to yourselves. Use your thinkers, because that's why you have them. Gary, thank you for everything you do. Oh, look at you wearing your hockey jersey. Now, what they
Shout
are?
out to all my friends in Vegas.
That's the what? The Golden Avengers.
Golden Knights.
Oh, Golden Knights.
Golden,
Well, I don't know.
Golden Knights.
I don't do sports. I don't do sports ball. But they're a hockey team.
Only sports.
That's so interesting. Okay, so side topic. I know I just said that we're ending the episode, but it boggles my mind that you're a hockey fan after like living so long in Virginia and then in Las Vegas. That hockey is your thing.
Yeah, because I love winter sports. Winter sports is like my thing. Like,
all right.
if you ever go like to the like a mountain with me, like extreme snowboarder, like I'm the one doing flips and
Gary,
stuff.
we have to go snowboarding together. Oh, so fun. Okay, tune in next year for Next to the Floor on location, where Gary and I go snowboarding and then sit around a fire and drink hot chocolate and talk about people.
Yeah. We still need to go get Korean food.
We do need to go get Korean food. We should set that up. Anywho, that has that has been our episode of Next to the Floor. Thank you all so much for watching. Remember, it costs you $0 to be a good person. So do it, because it's free. So thank you all so much for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will see you next week, next Sunday.
Woo!
Mark your calendars. All right.
Mark your calendars.
Good night, all of you beautiful, lovely nerds and nerdettes.